Hello everyone, it's Patty here from Deep Space Sparkle for another Thursday afternoon Facebook Live art tutorial. This is the second in hopefully a continuous series on how to incorporate the elements of art and principles of design into your art program. It's been a couple of weeks since I did the last one, but the first tutorial that I did in this series was called Line and Pattern. And so you can always go back to watch any one of these live art tutorials by going to this page, Deep Space Sparkle, Facebook page, and then just click on the videos. There's a little side tab bar that says videos, and you can watch all of the videos there. What I'm going to be doing today is the second part of this 12-part series. And like I just mentioned, the first one, Line and Pattern, talked all about how to start the year off with your students or your children by teaching them how to literally draw a line and the nuances of why it's important to kind of break it down so that kids can learn how to draw shapes. And that is the building blocks for all of art. And it's the building blocks of our EPIC curriculum. But if you're not a sparkler, totally fine. This program or this art tutorial hopefully will really help you. Hi Gianna, hi Veronica, hi Melissa. Kind of think about just little nuances and little tips to teach your children. So I do have a handout for everyone. Hi Veronica, she's a sparkler, yay! Love my sparklers. And I love how you're showing up today. You know, these Thursday afternoon art tutorials are for everybody, but I'm especially happy that the sparklers join us. You have a lot to say. Hi Renee. Good. Hi Elizabeth. In hot Atlanta. Yes, I bet it's hot there. Hi Heather. So the first thing I want to point out is that we do have a handout for you, and I had a nice little write-up at the beginning of this live video, but for some reason Facebook didn't like me to do that. I kept on deleting it but I'll put it back in a little bit later. But if you go head over to Deep Space Sparkle, and maybe Ashley or Neil is listening. I told them not to because I already had the link in, but it turns out I don't have the link. But you can go head over to Deep Space Sparkle, and just today I uploaded a brand new post, and it's all about teaching shape. And so you can get this handout, and I'll show you what's inside. Hi Jenny. Oh, I'm glad that you're liking all the lessons. There's a lot of them, huh? So it looks like this, and then inside the handout is a really nifty, and I know this is backwards for you, a nifty drawing guide. And this basically shows you kind of like it was actually for the kids, but it'll help them draw the project that we're doing. And one of the projects that we're doing, especially for the younger students, is the Calder, Alexander Calder Inspired Geometric Fish. It's quite a title, I know, but that's what we're going to draw. And I'm going to show you how we're building now from the line and pattern, and we're moving into shape. And so you can see that with doing all of these lessons sequentially, you're building on the skills of the children. And then, MJ, she has a hard time finding the live video, but you're here, so you found it. You can always find me just by going on the Deep Space Sparkle fan page, and it always stays there, so you can watch the ones from last week and the week before and all of that stuff. Okay, now the second handout is really simple. This is just the organic shapes, because I'm going to teach you kind of some cutting strategies, some talking strategies that you can work with your older students on how to cut shapes, especially organic shapes, because as the children move up into the grade levels, they're going to learn more about the organic shapes and how to put them in a composition. And the younger shapes, it's more about geometric, and then they start to differentiate. So that's what we're going to do. And then I have one final little handout. Oh, there's Ashley. She's uploading the download link for you right now. So you can hop on over to Deep Space Sparkle and you can download that. You can either do it now or you can do it later. It's kind of up to you. I also have this, it's kind of like a quick visual. So you can laminate this. You can give it to your students. You can put it in your teacher planner book. You could put it in the students' portfolios if you want to. But it basically describes the organic shapes and kind of just some ideas and examples, and then the geometric shapes. For some reason, it's always helpful to have those little visuals kind of at the ready, especially just before you're going to teach a lesson, because I find sometimes when you ever like get up in front of the kids and they might have not come into the classroom that lovely or gracefully, and all of a sudden you kind of forget what you're teaching, and it's really nice to have a little poster, a little visual aid to kind of go, oh yeah, organic shapes, here's the definition. Geometric shapes, here are the definitions. Here's something to look at, kids. It's just nice to have a little cushion there. And so that's what I kind of, that's what we feel this would be helpful for, but you can use it in however you want. Okay. Okay. Now, the first thing I want to show you are some art projects. Okay. So last time I talked about line and pattern, and so the kids got busy just learning how to draw lines that form into shapes, and then using patterns to either fill up a turtle with, really cool patterns or swirls or zigzags or little markings. Older students can do something like this using markers to get into the color rendering. But basically, even simple shapes like this is a perfect lesson for line, because little children are just literally learning how to draw a line. And this is kind of in the style of Hundertwasser. And we have a couple of lessons on Hundertwasser in the line and pattern bundle for all you sparklers. And you can see how it's so simple, but children really start to understand how they can move the lines. And then what happens is that they start to recognize how that line forms a shape, and they start drawing shapes. So we're going to kind of build on this lesson. This is drawing and painting shapes, but today we're going to be actually cutting out shapes with paper. So we're going to create these little panels. Now, like all art tutorials, I like to make my samples a little bit smaller. Number one, so they fit into the screen behind me, and two, they don't take a long time. But feel free to use whatever size paper that you want and that you normally use in your classroom. I think that's the most important thing. So we're going to do something like this, and I'm just going to show you different ways to teach children how to cut. Because if there's any teachers who have older students, you might find that, yeah, I tried that project and the kids all cut really small. And I know exactly what you're talking about. So I'm going to show you a few tips to get them to cutting big and more fluidly. Okay, hold me to that if I miss over that step. Then, as children start to learn how shapes can create compositions, you can do really cool abstract compositions. This is a Rex Ray composition that we have in the abstract art bundle if you're a sparkler. And if you're not, I don't think I have a lesson on the blog, but it's basically just how to use shapes in a composition, how to get, achieve balance and proportion. But you may be really familiar with something like this. Teaching this type of lesson at the beginning of the year is super helpful. It really helps children, especially the second grade and the third grade, who you would think would be still really good or good enough with scissors. But sometimes you might run into second grade students who don't even know how to hold scissors. And you're like, what happened? What happened last year? Anyways, this is like a third grade project. And I find, things like creating a symmetrical vase, like how to literally fold a paper and create a vase and have it not fall apart in the middle. Like, that is challenging for a lot of students, so it's really getting them to think and kind of plan ahead. And then the flowers are all made up of individual shapes. So this at the beginning of the year really reinforces that whole idea of how to cut a shape big enough to create a composition. And so you can see how using shape in your art program, I tell you, it just kind of runs all year long. Towards the end of the year, I love doing portraits, and look how fun this little gal is. This is like the paper cut portraits, basically using shapes, because the children in this lesson, they actually don't really draw the face. They do. They kind of draw the shape of a face. So they, instead of looking at the face in terms of lines and placement, they look at all the features from the perspective of shape. What does the shape of a hairline look like? And the shape of a face and the shape of a nose. And that's where this project comes into play, which is something I really love. And then, another project in the shape bundle for all you sparklers. This is for like the 5th grade, is Miro, the Juan Miro, really abstract, but it's all based on shape which uses lines for emphasis. So these are just some examples of things that you can do in your classroom, starting from building from line and pattern and moving into shape. So the first one we're going to do is the Calder. And I don't have a great book on Calder that really talks about the shapes of his art, but this Sandy Circus is a fabulous book to introduce Alexander Calder, because he's especially known for his wire what's the word, little someone help me those little figures. And then sometimes I just forget a word. Have you ever done that in front of students and they're like, oh my gosh, Mrs. Palmer, you lost it. And the other thing that he's really famous for is his mobiles. But he also is really quite well known for his paintings of lots of shapes. And we have an art project in the Sparklers Club that really emphasizes a lot of the shapes. And so one of the mobiles that he has is like a fish, a wire fish, with all of these little dangling shapes inside. So one of the lessons that we use, wire sculpture. You'd think that would be easy, even though it's really hard for me right now. I don't know why. Okay, so so we took this wire sculpture of this really popular fish that Calder did, and we translated it into just a basic drawing. And this is a great way, especially for kinder and first grade lessons, for little kids to see, just draw the basic contour line, and then to create this web and fill all these little individual webs with shapes. And if you can download a picture of the fish sculpture or hanging from like Wikipedia Art, you can show children just what he used inside these little dangling areas. There'd be buttons and bottle caps and all sorts of different stones, and children can look for the shapes and then draw those shapes. So I'm going to show you how to do this. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need is, let me just figure out where I put my handouts. And let's see, here they are. I'm back. Okay, so I would suggest you give a child in kindergarten and first grade about like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of copy paper. If you want to go really big, 12 by 18, it'll take children a little bit longer to draw and paint, or draw in color rather. So a smaller sheet of paper like this is just a little easier. So if you have 30-minute classes, one of the easiest ways to kind of make the lesson a little easier and go a little faster, just downsize your actual paper. So this is the handout that you could either put up on your whiteboard as a demonstration model, or you could put these kind of just around the table. Some children will use them and some children won't. The idea though is for them to understand just the basic shape of this fish. And it goes like this. I like to use crayons, and I do find that the fatter the crayon, I think you're probably going to expect me to say the better, but for this lesson I would go for the regular Crayola crayons. I find that the smaller tip is much easier for a younger child for this lesson. Not for all lessons. I mean, these crayons are beautiful, but I find they're a bit chunky, and the kids can't really see the point. So you want to make sure that they can see what they're actually drawing. But because I don't have a black Crayola crayon, I mean, how is that possible? But I don't. I'm going to use the chunkier one to draw with. And I think you can all see this right here. It's pretty small, but you're simply going to tell the children, okay kids, you want to put your crayon and make a little dot, and pretty close to the edge of the paper, and you can use your finger to guide. So put your finger right on the edge and put a little dot right beside it. And that way, and I know it's hard for you to see that way they know where they have to end up. Then say, okay, take 2 fingers this time and put it on the other side of the paper and draw a dot just in front of your fingers. So now they have 2 dots as guideposts, so they know where they're going. Anything that happens between those 2 guideposts, well, you know, lots can happen, but at least they know how far to go, because some kids will go right off the paper. Not a bad thing, but for this lesson, we just want to kind of keep it inside the paper. You're going to tell them to go just above that line and make a big rainbow line all the way to the dot. They don't even have to touch the dot. Then below that dot, I want you to draw a nice big smile and go almost to the dot. So they're not quite touching the dot, but if they do touch the dot, totally fine. They probably will, because little kinders, they kind of go like this. They want to connect everything. Now, you have an open end and kind of a closed end. So which end is the mouth? Well, this end. And you want to draw a big letter V. Just like that. Now at the back of the fish, now I'm hoping that you guys can hear me okay. I do know that because I don't have my microphone, I'm trying to talk louder. At this point, you want to kind of say, draw a line to the corner of the paper on the top and one on the bottom. So you want to go all the way to the top and to the bottom, or head in that direction, and then join up the tail. So now, that's all there is to it. This is a great project for the very beginning of the year because most kids can do this. Then say you want to draw a nice big eye, big circle, and then you want to color in a dot. Okay, that's it. Now, I'm wondering, I just want to try something different here. I want to take this, I just want to hold it up for you, and just use it like here, because I think this part is a little bit trickier, and I just want to show you how you can do it. Okay, so you want to take some lines and draw them, take your oil or your crayon, place it on the top, and draw a line towards the middle of the body. And tell the kids to start exactly on the line, don't go through the eye, and keep on going. And do the very same thing on the bottom. It's easier for me to draw down than up. So put your crayon on the line and draw towards the middle. Just like that. And now what we can do is to draw like a chevron or a letter V. And this is the web that they can draw, or they're creating. So little V's, almost like a little picket fence. And this is challenging for kinders. First graders, no problem. Turn it upside down and see if we can draw another. Oops, I'm going to go through the eye. Am I going to draw through the eye? I'm just going to jump over the eye and keep on making those V's or those picket fences. Can you guys see that? And then the fun part is the middle, do whatever you want. So you can kind of connect more lines. Maybe you draw another picket fence. And it kind of gets a little messy. I'm not going to lie, this is not my strength. But at this point, they did a really good job on the outside. So all they have to do is kind of just fill it in on the inside. Okay, they have to adapt it. So that looks pretty good. I make the tail pretty simple. And now, this is where the fun part happens. Okay, I'm going to take my black crayon and put it away. So did everyone get that part? I'm going to keep on doing this side. Now you want to take one color. Now, there's all sorts of different ways you can teach a child how to do these types of things, but this is what I like. Give a child instructions. So take your favorite color. So basically you're asking them to choose one color, but you're not telling them what color to choose. Choose your favorite color. And then I want you to draw one circle, one triangle, and one square. Will they all be able to do that? No, but some will. So take your purple and draw one circle in any one of those little webs. And if you want to, color it in. Just like that. Draw one square. I'll put it over here. Color it in. And now, can you find another spot to draw one triangle? And draw one triangle. So what this does, it gets kids thinking about the different shapes. And you can use different shapes, a trapezoid, a diamond, a star, a crescent shape, whatever shape you want. And you can, basically do whatever you want. But here's the secret. Then you say, okay, put your crayon down and choose another color. And I'm going to choose like a green. What this does, it prevents the students than from doing one little shape, because you're going to get those kids. They'll do a shape and they'll go, okay, I got my shape, and then they'll put their crayon down and they'll take 5 minutes to figure out the next color. You know which ones I mean, right? They'll take forever. So now you at least get them going on some shapes. So we did a square. What 2 things are left? You want to draw a circle, and what's left now? And they'll go, okay, I'll do a triangle. So great, do a triangle. And now, even the kids who have a really hard time deciding and making up their minds, well, you know what? They have half their fish colored. And so that's how you would continue on. Okay, kids, now let's choose your next favorite color. Everyone got one? Okay, give me a thumbs up if you have one, or hold your crayon in the air. So that's the strategy I would take. So what do you think about that? I think this is a really fun lesson. The idea is that you want to fill up each little section with a shape, and you can do 5 different shapes. You could take that little handout and do all the shapes that are in the picture. So you can really embellish this. With kinders, keep it simple, maybe 3 shapes. First graders, do all the shapes. Second graders, have them work with not crayons, but markers. So that's a way that you could scale up the lesson. Okay, so the next project is the Matisse. And this is really fun. Kids love, especially 3rd grade and up, starting to create things that, hold on, there we go, that they can create, they can cut and arrange on their own. They love standing up. They love, picking out their papers and choosing and making selections. So whenever you get a chance to do some type of collage, I always reserve those like for 3rd grade and above, because they really get into it. 2nd grade and below, a little bit more challenging as far as I'm concerned, because the cutting is a little bit more difficult. So the way you're going to start with this lesson, you want to start with, I would use a 12 by 18 sheet of paper. However, there is a warning. It does take a lot of time to fill up that huge amount of paper. You think it wouldn't, but it does. And so you can start with, and that's why I had this paper. This is like a half of a 12 by 18. It's a 12 by 9. And so you have this nice long paper, and it's much easier to fill up, and it has a unique shape. So I have a smaller piece of paper here, and I'm going to put it up here. And you're going to want, I think it's helpful if you show kids a lot of Matisse's artwork. If you don't have a lot of the artwork, definitely get out the books. And this particular book, called Matisse's Garden, is one of my favorites because it really takes a lot of time to show all the different shapes and how he arranged the shapes to form subjects. And this is what I love about this particular book. It's I've done a couple of lessons based on this book, but I think this is a good one. And it opens up into these huge pictures. So if you're going to buy one book on Matisse, I do like this one a lot. It's Matisse's Garden, and it's by Samantha Friedman, illustrations by Christina Amadeo. Now there's another book that I should have mentioned before when we were doing the geometric fish. This is my new favorite. This is called Shapeshift, and it's by Joyce Hesselberth. This is a great book for introducing children to shape, the little ones, 4, 5, and 6, because it basically identifies the shapes in everyday life in a very fun way. So children can see the cars with the rectangles and the circles, and they see how triangles and ovals kind of relate to the real world, the watermelons, and it's just the cutest book. Really lively and lighthearted, but this is a good one, Shapeshift. Okay, so go ahead and I would give children this particular handout and just have it on the table, or if you can, put as many Matisse posters on your wall as possible so children can actually look and see all the different organic shapes, because he just did so many beautiful ones. And here's the thing, when you show Matisse's artwork, have you ever noticed that the shapes just aren't perfect? They're all kind of jagged, and he literally cut them out himself, and children can notice that, so they don't have to be perfect. Sometimes if we do things, they tend to be a little bit more perfect, but Matisse wasn't. So I'll put that up here. And I'm going to show you how to cut something like that. So how to teach a child to cut something like that. It's not easy, but there's one rule. Are you guys ready? One hand has to be the driver and the other hand has to be the cutter. And the hand that's the cutter, this is how I tell children. I'll try to stand back. I tell them, if you're going to be cutting something, put your elbow into your waist and hold the scissors kind of at an angle, a 45-degree angle. Take your paper that you want to cut and put it in the driver's hand, whatever that is, the left or the right. And then start at the bottom. And then I want you to turn the paper. The scissors don't move, but the paper does. I find that that really frees kids up and allows them to achieve a really nice smooth line when they're cutting like a really beautiful organic shape. Now, as I just mentioned, Matisse, had a lot of jagged lines in his art, but kids are going to have that too. But this just gives them like that head start, so they can do whatever they want. So I really am not moving my cutting hand at all. And as children are cutting in this manner, tell them just to cut and feel the shape. Don't think the shape, just feel it. And not to worry about what it looks like, but just focus on cutting the beautiful curves and finding out where they want to end up back at. And so now I have a really pretty shape. It is not at all really like this shape, and that's the beautiful thing. It's really hard to replicate the shapes. So isn't this pretty? And what I would do is tell children to kind of get about 5 or 7 shapes and then just start putting them off to the side. And I can put this one here. I made a few in advance. So let's put those there. I think one thing that I really love are the negative shapes. So I've cut out this beautiful watercolor paper, scrap paper, and you can see that it has a really pretty negative shape. So you can tell kids to keep that. They may keep it whole or they may actually cut it up, but that should go on their design paper. So this is like my design paper. I'm going to arrange all of my, or see all of my organic shapes, and then we'll put them in the composition. So you want to keep going, and I have a few more shapes. I just have a long sheet of paper. It's always helpful to have in a tray different sizes of paper that will fit the composition paper. So my paper is a 9 by 12, and so this is a 9-inch long sheet strip of rectangle, and then I just cut it so that I know it's going to fit one side. I guess it's 12 inches. So I'm going to put this on my composition paper. Now another trick is to give children relatively small pieces of paper. Remember how I said that children, a lot of kids struggle to cut things large. They'll tend to almost always, especially in the younger grades, to cut really tiny shapes. And then you're like, oh, that's kind of hard to make a composition out of, because then they have a little shape here and a little shape down there, and more likely than not, all those little shapes are in the middle. But sometimes they're on either end, and you're like, oh, that's a great composition. Either ends and then nothing in the middle. When you have bigger shapes, to encourage the kids to cut all the way to the outside, all the way to the edge, and kind of make it a rule. Say, okay kids, you're going to cut an organic shape, and I want you to make sure you touch 2 of the sides. So maybe starting is one side, and maybe I'll just do a wobbly shape. And I have to keep in mind, as the artist, I have to touch another side. So I'm going to touch this side, and you touch it if the paper falls off, just like the way it did. And so keep on going, and then that way the kids kind of know, they have a rule and they have a direction and a sense. They're feeling the sense like, I need to do big. I have to go in the direction of the outside edge. And so they have another really cool little shape. I'll put that here. So the important thing to remember is just to get large shapes, and smaller shapes will come later. So you want the big shapes first. I have a couple of shapes on or in that URL that Ashley put. It's going to lead you back to Deep Space Sparkle. In the post, there's a link to a video that I did showing you how to teach children how to draw spirals or cut spirals, not draw them. And it's kind of neat because you want that space in between the spirals. Otherwise, kids just cut around like a snail and then they put it on their art, but it just looks like a circle with some lines in it. And you want them to be able to cut out the shapes. So there is a video there that walks you through that process. And so now you get to say to the kids, okay, look at all the amazing shapes that you have. At this point, you have to start composing them into an arrangement. And there's nothing better than referring to Matisse's art for children to kind of come up with their own idea of what they would like their shapes to either represent or not represent. And so this is like a garden theme. It's my idea. And do you see this is the negative shape. And the negative shape really comes in handy because it kind of anchors the piece. So I think we'll start with the negative shape. And I'm not going to glue all the pieces. I'll just use magnets. But you can put your like negative shape kind of to anchor the bottom. And then maybe I'll use this one to anchor the top. Just like that. If you were doing this in the classroom, which obviously you would, make sure you take the time to actually glue it. I probably should too. I'm just being lazy. Who am I kidding? Okay, I'm going to glue it. So to glue it, you just turn it over. I definitely like using school glue. I think it glues a lot better. And using the glue stick, it doesn't hold the heavier papers as well. So definitely use school glue. If you want to use a brush, it's even better. You want to get the edges. And go ahead and stick it on. And the thing I tell kids is to press down, and then I would actually literally have them pick up their artwork, turn it over, and press it down with their hands. So, kind of like that. And make sure they have it straight. If they don't, just move it right away. So, you can just kind of move on from there and add, I don't even have to demonstrate it really, but the idea is to get all of the little organic shapes in place, to start layering down the negative shapes and putting the positive shapes on top. And then the best part is filling it in with any kind of smaller details. So right here, I felt it needed a little bit more detail, so you can kind of offer children some black paper and they can cut out little tiny strips or little tiny squares, which is what Matisse did, and it kind of brings it all together. So that's it for the two projects. And the way I would divide up the age, I think the Matisse Collage project, anywhere from grades 3 to 6, the younger the grade, reduce the size of paper. The older the kids, you can have a bigger sheet. And then for the younger kids, K through 2, I love the Calder fish. However, I was just thinking this, you can do this Matisse shape with younger kids. Just make sure the shapes are bigger, because they won't have the scope to do so many nuanced cuttings. In fact, it's really helpful to have some templates, and you could use that handout to create templates for your students, and then they would learn how to trace the templates, cut out the shapes, and then arrange them. And that is super helpful for the K through 2 crowd, because they're just learning how to cut. They're just learning how to trace, and they're learning how to glue things on. So these are the skills that just build. So there you go. Those are the two lessons that I really love. I pulled from the EPIC curriculum. So if anyone's a sparkler, this is going to be in the shape bundle. You may or may not have opened it yet, but it is something that I would definitely encourage you to open either this month. On Saturday is it's bundle day. You get to unlock your 2 bundles. And we are uploading the new bundle, which is the substitute teacher bundle, which I'm really super happy that we have, because we've had so many teachers ask for it. So that's really exciting for sparklers. If you're not a sparkler, the next time I come on live, it won't be next week because I'll be away. But the week after that, I'm going to be doing color. It's my favorite element. So We already done line and pattern last week. The shape is this week, and then next week the week after next it's going to be color, and then we'll keep moving through all of the units, all of the curriculum, the EPIC curriculum, and hopefully it'll give you some tips on how you can teach these lessons in your classroom, these little teaching tips. So thank you, Marissa. I saw that Marissa, who is the architect of our EPIC curriculum, she just jumped on answering questions because I can't scroll for whatever reason. It's just not cooperating today. So I thank you guys. Have an amazing long weekend if you're in the States or in Canada, or wherever you have Labor Day. I hope it's a restful one. And for many of you, I know you're probably going back to school. So absolutely wonderful. I do see this question, Lumi asks, I see you used painted papers in this project. Do you use a separate lesson for that? Yes, you can. I generally encourage all our teachers to do some type of painted paper lesson at the beginning of the year for a couple of different grades so that you have a collection in which to pull. So I even know teachers who make their own painted paper just to have like literally as a resource. So students don't necessarily have to make the painted paper. You can, or older students can, and you can share, but it's just kind of up to you how you decide to do that. But painted paper, it's an absolute gem to have at your resource, and it's a really easy way to use up paper scraps as well. Okay, everyone, you guys all have an amazing day. I'll be filling in this post with more details on what we talked about today, and then you hop on over to Deep Space Sparkle to get your download and hopefully start doing these lessons with your kids. Now, if you do, make sure you post these lessons in the Facebook group on Deep Space Sparkle. I want to see what you've done. On Instagram, definitely tag me at Deep Space Sparkle, or use the hashtag Deep Space Sparkle so we can showcase your work. Okay, everyone, have a great day and an even better weekend.